Naruto, Fu, and Gaara had been discussing for the past hour how to handle their darker deed, been trying for the past week but had no success. It wasn't easy trying to figure out what all their darker selves were even talking about, but they were going to have to if they wanted to move on with their training. Fu wasn't sure what her darker self meant when she said she wanted a normal life. Sure, back when she lived in the waterfall, she would spend nights crying and praying that she could just be normal. Yet, when she came to the hidden leaf, that all changed. Everyone there accepted her for who she was, so she didn't need to change. She'd had a few moments in the leaf where she pondered what a normal life would have been like, but they were few and far between. It seemed like her darker self was just a personification of that buried desire. Naruto's seemed a bit more confusing. They didn't have to wonder what it was, at least, it had actually told Naruto it was the incarnation of all his doubts. The thing that scared him the most was that he didn't know that he had that many doubts. He'd always been a little scared about trying to bring peace to the world and whether or not he could actually do it. Also, he guessed the thought of control the Kyuubi's power always had him a little nervous. Maybe he did have more doubts than he thought. Finally, there was Gaara, whose darker self seemed the most bizarre out of all of them. It looked like a 3-year-old boy, still believed that Shikaku was his mother, and didn't trust anyone. To be honest, it was almost like what Gaara could have been if he hadn't gotten his life together. Gaara really had no idea how to handle him. This thing was like all of his fears and suppressed anger over the past concentrated into one person. He wasn't sure how the heck he was gonna manage to even talk to his darker self, but he was sure that there was one thing he needed to do before he went back to face him. They weren't given any longer to think as Killer Bee was ready to start again. "Alright yo, let's start up this show." "Fool, ya fool." All of them were nervous about going back in but attempted to walk to the falls confidently. Gaara had something to discuss with Killer Bee. "Bee-sensei, I've got a favor to ask of you." Bee was happy to help. "Whatcha need, Sandman?" Gaara was really hoping that Bee would be able to do this. "You told me once that the 8 tails can help you travel through your mind and replay your memories. I need to know if he can do that for me as well." Gaara waited as Bee seemed to have a conversation in his head. After about a minute he said, "Alright, that shouldn't be a problem. Where do you want to go?" Gaara gave a deep sigh and told him, "I need you to take me back to the day I was born. There's something I need to find out." Bee thought about it. "Okay, but you won't actually be able to see anything. Babies can't see much when they're first born, so it'll be more like an audio recording." "Pretty cool, ya fool." Gaara wanted to bury him to stop his accursed rapping but thought better of it. "Sound is all I need. Can we do it before we start the Falls of Truth exercise?" Bee didn't see why not. "Sure thing, Sandman." When they got to the Falls of Truth, Bee told Naruto and Fu, "You guys wait for a little bit, me and Sandman got something to take care of first." Naruto and Fu knew better than to complain, so they went and sat down next to a tree and started to drift off to sleep slightly. Gaara turned to Bee, had his fist extended in the air. "Bump fists with me bro, so 8 can to you yo." Gaara found the whole thing strange but did as he was told. Before long the world around him started to go blank and he was inside his mind with the giant ox. "Before we start, I've gotta tell you this is gonna hurt like hell. Doing this with Bee is one thing, my mind's connected to his as it is. Entering your mind, even with your permission, isn't going to be pleasant. You're sure you want to do this?" Gaara nodded and Tailed Beast began to dig into his mind. Within seconds, Gaara was screaming in pain. Granted, no one outside could hear him because it was all in his head, but it was still pretty freaking loud inside there. The blackness around him started to be filled with color, but it was blurry and impossible to make out. It was hard to believe that this was the extent of what you could see when you were an infant. However, they could hear voices clear as day. "What's his name?" A woman spoke. "Gaara, his name is Gaara, please let me hold him. It was obvious the woman who was talking didn't have long to live, and it was also obvious to Gaara who that woman was, his mother. She began to speak again, Gaara, my son. Gaara was hanging on her every word. He had to know the truth, he had to know if his mother really hated him. Gaara, I'm so sorry I can't be there for you in person, but I'll be there for you as much as I can. My spirit will always be with you, to protect you, Gaara. I love you so much. The sound of a flatline could be heard, signaling that Gaara's mother had passed on. By this time, Gaara was in tears and mumbling to himself, she loved me, mother loved me. Since it was clear that Gaara had found what he'd been looking for, so the dream was ended and Gaara was brought back into reality. Fu and Naruto asked him, you okay, man? You looks kind of out of it. Gaara regained his composure, yes, in fact I'm feeling better than I have in a long time. B-sensei, can we please get started? B of course didn't object and the three of them got into their usual position on the patch of ground. Their sensei watched closely as the meditation began. He had a feeling things were going to go well this time. Fu soon found herself fading into her mind. She'd learned to recognize what it felt like over the past week. She heard a familiar voice that she had started to hate, oh, so little Miss Goody Two-Shoes are back, eh? Looks like I'm gonna have to kick your ass out of here again. Fu gave her a hard glare, you don't scare me. Her dark self chuckled, true, but I don't need you to afraid of me to win. All I need is for you to be scared of your future. You know deep down in your heart that you'll never have that normal little life you wanted so badly. Fu felt like she'd heard that 100 times already. You know what? You're right. I'll never have what most people consider a normal life. Her darker self seemed surprised. Wow, you finally admitted it. Does that mean you're gonna give this bullshit up? Fu scoffed, not a chance. I might never be normal, but frankly I don't want to be. All of those people that you called normal, they were the ones who were making my life a living hell. Some of the higher-ups told them to hate me, so they did. Normal people follow everyone else, but that's not me. People like me, Naruto, Gaara, and Shino-kun, were the ones who changed things. I'm not going to give all of that up just for the sake of being normal. People who normal are just afraid of trying to be something more. They're not bad people, they just give in too easily. We could be a hell of a lot more than normal, so why don't you want us to be? Her darker self was shocked at the outburst. Do you have any idea how hard all of that's going to be? Are you even sure you can do it? Fu shrugged, you'll never know until you try. Please, I'm not saying that you have to help me, but at least don't get in my way. Her darker self grumbled to herself and gave a deep sigh. You aren't even afraid of me anymore, are you? Fu shook her head, fine, I'll get out of your way. Just don't come crying to me if you fall flat on your ass. Fu wanted to jump for joy. She actually convinced her darker self to leave her alone. Before long she was awake and saw that Gaara and Naruto were still busy inside their heads. She just hoped they had as much luck as she did. Gaara quickly entered his mind and began to search for his darker self. He expected to once again find an angry little boy, but he actually found him cuddled up next a tree hugging a teddy bear. The boy seemed distressed, so Gaara asked, "Are you all right?" The boy gave him a dark stare. "Don't speak to me. I can't trust you. I can't trust anyone, not even Mama." Gaara could see that his darker self now knew the truth as well. That only made sense since he was a part of his mind. He was still confused on one thing though. What do you mean you can't trust Mama? His darker self started to stare at his feet. She lied to me. Mama told me that my real mother hated me. How am I supposed to trust anyone anymore? Gaara knelt by his younger self. Our friends have never lied to us, we can trust them. The darker Gaara's eyes shot up. No, we can't. We only have each other. We can only love ourselves. Gaara couldn't believe just how isolated this boy had been. Please just let me help you. When my friends helped me. His younger self cut him off. You're not my friend. You just want me out of the way so that you can control Mama. Gaara was starting to lose ground. No, I'm not. If I don't have some kind of fear, then I'll start to make bad decisions. I need you. His darker self looked up at him with hopeful eyes and asked in a quiet voice, You need me? Gaara nodded, Yes, I do. Will you help me? Just the thought of being needed made his darker self happy. Yes, I'll help. Gaara smiled to his darker self and the two of them just sat together for a while. Before long he was awake, leaving Naruto as the final one facing his darker self. Everyone watched him in anticipation. Naruto was determined to end this once and for all. He needed to put these doubts to rest in his mind, at least long enough to complete his training. He had a plan, something he thought would finally get his darker self to cooperate. While he had no idea if it was going to work, he figured it was at least worth a shot. As soon as he entered his mind, his darker self started in on him. Would you just stop this? You're not going to get me to back down, so just give it up. I mean really, how can you? The dark Naruto didn't finish his sentence, as the real Naruto had walked over and hugged him. Thank you for everything. I know that you're doing all of this to try and protect me and that you've probably kept me from making a lot of mistakes in the past, but this time I can't listen to you. I need you to let me do this. His darker self didn't know how to respond. This wasn't really a scenario he'd thought about. Naruto was actually acknowledging that he was trying to protect him. Maybe just this once, alright, I'll step aside this time. But you'd better be careful. Naruto gave him a grateful nod. Don't worry, I will be. Naruto opened his eyes to see his friends with excited looks on their faces. Does that mean that you guys did it too? They start to cheer that all of them completed the exercise. Killer Bee was psyched. Ah yeah. We gonna kick some ass now, bro. Time for us to really get this training started. All of them were so happy to move on to the next stage. This was even better than their wildest dreams. They were going to be full-blown Jinchuriki.